There's a lot of theory out there about what a Bitcoin standard will be like in the future and how Bitcoin is going to act and be a part of the world in the future. Something that really changed for me, that really started getting the gears turning and me to kind of split away from just kind of the general repeated conversation out there, was really trying to be like, yeah, but what about today? What about today? Like, there's this whole thinking of like, we're so early. And I have such a love-hate relationship with that phrase, because the we're so early phrase is true and is fine, but I think behind it often has a lot of apathy. Like, I've been watching Bitcoin videos on YouTube since 2015. I've been working for Bitcoin startups since 2019, and I've talked to thousands of Bitcoiners about how they used to use Bitcoin, how they think they're going to use Bitcoin in the future, and how they use Bitcoin today. And there's this thing that I came to realize, that like there's very little kind of people, or like thought, I shouldn't say people, I should say like thoughts. Like, there's very few thoughts being pushed out there about how to increase your Bitcoin usage in your personal finances today. Now look, savings is using, and a lot of people are crushing that bucket, and that's awesome. That's awesome. But I try to come up with these like mental experiments or ways to kind of push myself forward and kind of ping them off other people to see how they like doing them, to just really, really look at, is there any other ways in my life that I can kind of like use Bitcoin? And one of these is measuring things in Bitcoin. Like, can you, just for the thought exercise, take your net worth or the value of your house or the value of your crypto portfolio or the value of your stock portfolio or the value of your car, or just anything, take any of these other things and just, what is the value in Bitcoin? And yeah, all you have to do is Google the Bitcoin price, and then you type in the USD amount, and then it gives you that Bitcoin amount. But simply doing the mental exercise of like measuring assets in Bitcoin, and just sit there and look at it. Like, sit there and look at the Bitcoin measurement of it and the USD measurement of it. And then do that over time and over time. And that's how I think we begin to like build up this mental association with the Bitcoin units, the same way that we have this built-in association with dollars. Like, we grew up on dollars. We've watched our parents and our grandparents work for dollars. We're very used to kind of valuing things of like, oh, that's underpriced, that's overpriced. Like, we all have these mental connections to like, oh, or this was this amount of dollars earlier in my life, and now it's this. Like, in order for a quote unquote Bitcoin standard to begin happening, it's as much about our own like mental perception as it is about kind of like global macroeconomic events. And I guess that's something that I've really tried to take to heart, is like, what can I do individually? What's something that I can work on individually in my own brain and inside my own life, in order to kind of bridge the gap between what I think is going to be like a Bitcoin standard in the future and what I'm doing in my actual life today. I think continuing to kind of repeat that we're so early in line, and think about, oh, Bitcoin like standard in the future, is kind of, I think that is stunting, I guess, the movement a little bit, to like call it like a broad movement. Is there's not enough personal responsibility on just like self-analyzing. Like, how are you using dollars in your own life, and can you level up the way you're using Bitcoin instead of that? And I think that and a lot of people will say like, hey, that sounds awesome, but how do I do it? And that's a super valid question. And I don't think we demand enough from our Bitcoin products, is then where I would take that. Like, the Bitcoin products and the exchanges that are available today and the wallets that are available today are nice and are awesome. And I applaud the things that are there, and I'm thankful for them. I think that us as users need to level up mentally and then demand more from our Bitcoin products. I think that's what's going to create the Bitcoin standard in real time. Like, there's not going to be, through talking to people of varying generations of Bitcoiners, there's not this moment where someone comes and taps you on the shoulder and is like, okay, time for it to switch from a savings technology to a spending technology. Like, that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. It comes from years and years and years of like mentally building up your association with the units and slowly moving your life from being based on dollars to being based in Bitcoin. And then you come to this thing of dollars are just an L2 of Bitcoin. Like, Bitcoin is my money and dollars is the L2 that kind of these legacy providers will acquire. And so it's this thing of I hold Bitcoin as my money and then I buy dollars when I need to. And I'm not all the way there yet. But it's something that I enjoy thinking about. And I think we need to level up the conversation around it. I think there's so much conversation about just the future and the future and the future, and there's not enough about today. Or when there is conversation about today, it's still over there, like in that country or where their fiat is bad, like then it makes sense. Or it's like, online for micropayments, it makes sense. But yeah, I just don't really know about like Bitcoin for mortgage payments or for car payments yet. Or it's like, so slight side tangent, but I also think that there's a little bit of a blind spot for Bitcoin in terms of like, Ethereum is being traded for NFTs, like, and for digital items. Like, there is a circular economy of Ethereum being traded for digital items. And so for Bitcoiners to believe that Bitcoin as a currency is going to circulate for in real life items, as I do, like, I'm passionate about, like, if you know a bartender or know a small restaurant owner, like, they should be encouraged to take Bitcoin at their restaurant. Like, I 100% agree with that. And I 100% think it's a great move for that small business owner. Even though it takes a little bit of a grassroots engine to like get it going in that town, that's 100% possible. But someone has to do that. Like, someone has to literally go have that conversation. And that might be you in your town. That could very well be you in your town. That's not just going to magically happen. Like, there's not going to be a day where the business owner just randomly is like, boop, now it's on or whatever. It's going to take someone, a provider, a software provider, installing it on their payment processor and for them to do it. And so if us as individuals begin to have this game of measuring things in Bitcoin in our own life, that's something that you can start today at your house that puts you in more of a mental framework to have that conversation with the small business owner, or to have the conversation with your crypto friend who is buying digital items with their crypto, to have this conversation of like, wait a minute, like, what is the actual status of Bitcoin versus the dollar, and what is the actual status of Bitcoin evolving as a currency? I believe it comes from us individually beginning to measure other assets and other things in our life in Bitcoin.